Is it okay to take psychedelics just to watch a movie or play video games? This is the question that has plagued psychonauts for thousands of years. Amongst many traditionalists, psychedelics are considered to be sacred, only to be taken with the intention of experiencing a vision quest with a goal of self-improvement, gaining deep self-knowledge, or understanding sacred universal truths. For others, it's a fun thing to do on the weekend or when you're bored after school or work. The answer, of course, is that there is no real answer. In this video, I will give my opinion on the matter while recounting my own experiences with mixing psychedelics and consumer entertainment. And you should listen to me because I'm talking on a microphone for a YouTube video that has incredible production value. Some of the most amazing and terrifying psychedelic experiences I've ever had were while tripping and passively consuming content. My first such experience was when I was 15. On 2 tabs of white blotter acid, I beat Super Star Wars for the SNES in a single playthrough. It was only my 3rd time taking acid, and it enabled me to enter a high state of focus and concentration that helped me beat a game I normally had trouble with. I immensely enjoyed this experience, but it was otherwise a very cosmetic trip. The only thing I learned from it was that sometimes it's fun to play video games on drugs, a fact as old as the universe itself. Then, when I was 17, I went to see Star Wars: The Phantom Menace on 2 hits of red gel tab acid. This was a transcendent, nearly spiritual experience. I wasn't just an audience member, I actually entered the movie. I felt like I was viewing it from inside the world itself as a character in the film. I was basically this guy. The film completely enveloped me. It was magical and one of the most immersive experiences I had ever had. And it launched a 20-year-long obsession for me with Star Wars. I was merely a passive fan of the franchise before. This trip made me a full-on fanboy. I read every expanded universe book. I waited in line for a full day to see episode 2 at midnight when it premiered. I even entertained the idea of, God forbid, getting a Star Wars themed tattoo. It also widely deepened my already lifelong love of cinema, and I believe was one of the earliest steps in my journey to becoming a filmmaker. What followed after that were several, perhaps overly indulgent, lackluster experiences where I would take acid and watch terrible movies at home. Movies like Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
Oh, nah, I done seen everything.
Or I would go to a friend's house and eat mushrooms, then watch them play Resident Evil 2 for 5 hours. These experiences felt pointless and meaningless, and left me feeling empty inside. Sitting there, passively consuming content, whether alone or with a friend, hammered home to me just how lonely of a place one's own mind can be. I suppose I learned some lessons, even from these trips, and from that perspective they ended up being valuable to me, even though they weren't fun. Then came another watershed moment, seeing The Matrix for the first time in a movie theater. While technically not tripping, I hadn't slept after tripping on 3 hits of acid the night before. I entered this film in the perfect way, clueless as to what it was about, 12 hours deep into an acid trip, and stoned on cannabis after smoking a blunt outside the theater. It was a more cerebral trip since most of the visual effects of the acid had already worn off, so I was more intrigued by the philosophical nature of The Matrix than I was the visuals. I instantly felt like I could deeply relate to Neo. Not just because we all want to be the Neo/Messiah characters in our own life stories, but because of his introverted personality and the way he felt alienated from the rest of society. And the theme of the film, that the surface reality we all agree on as real is actually a complex simulation of lies made to control and subdue us, to me, is one of the core lessons that I've learned doing psychedelics. It was a pretty overwhelming experience. The film put into words something I had always felt inside, that the nature of reality is not absolute, and that if you look deep enough, you'll find that there is no such thing as a pure truth. After that ultimate red pill experience, I took a 20-year break from psychedelics altogether. The next and last time I tried to watch a movie on psychedelics was when I ate 4 grams of mushrooms alone and tried to watch one of my favorite psychedelic movies of all time, A Field in England. Normally, watching this movie would put me into an altered state of consciousness even if I was sober, and the experience I had while trying to watch it tripping was overwhelming to the point of giving me anxiety. I could only make it through the first few minutes before shutting it off. What followed was one of the most challenging trips I've ever had, enduring several hours of psychosis and amnesia while flailing myself all over the small one-bedroom apartment I was living in. I forgot who and what I was, and had no memory of ever existing. The only thing I knew is that I was going insane and that I was most likely about to die. It was actually pretty funny. I made a couple of videos about it. You should check them out. These are not all of the experiences that I've had like this, but I'm not even going to get into the other ones because they were pretty uneventful. All in all, I would say these experiences were all valuable to me, whether as an introspective psychic learning experience or just a plain old fun time. And there's nothing wrong with having fun on psychedelics, assuming you're not endangering yourself or anyone else doing it. You don't need to vomit and poop in a bucket or attend Burning Man to have an insightful, deep, and meaningful experience on drugs. You don't even need to have deep or meaningful experiences on them. You simply need a will, and some money to buy the drugs, and maybe some childhood trauma mixed in for good measure. I hope you liked my video. If you want to check out the films I make, including the psychedelic ones, click on my second channel in the description.